what kind of degenerate, malformed atheist are you? You say, bro, I'm an atheist. I don't have time for racism. You're the one who said all those racist things, not me. But this is how our side argues. If you're losing, you call us a racist because you can't prove anything. What? I bet you, like, you don't sound like an atheist at all. Like, the way you're arguing sounds very much like you're just, or if you are, you're just very much a simpleton. I'm sorry to say this. Um, I say what makes you Muslim is what you believe in. You can't say that before Islam, Muslims used to believe in something else, because at that point they weren't Muslims. Like, come on, come on. Like, it truly does bother me that you just try to correlate that so you can gain some moral superiority to this conversation. Stop playing these games, you're not good at them. Literally, Darth Totes, you are a complete idiot. I'm sorry to say this. Most people are huge idiots, so I mean, don't take this personally. I'm sure, I'm sure there are lots of people who are bigger idiots than you. So please, understand that you're not alone in this. Nonetheless, oh, and I see Vapes for Christ follow me, which is kind of surprising, but thank you for following me. Muslim isn't a race. Thank you, Davy Rays. Can you maybe sort of, bolster my point here a bit more? Explain to Darth Totes how and here Elaine asks, is Jewish a race? Like, no, it's not a race, but it's true that there's certain like races that are like have been historically associated with Judaism. So you've got like the Ashkenazis and Sephardi's, all that, and so it's kind of has been conflated with a race, but it's not actually a race. And then you can even say that you could be like culturally Jewish, so you sort of do like the customs, you maybe celebrate Hanukkah or something. You celebrate Hanukkah, and so in that sense you're still like culturally Jewish, but again, that's still not a race at that point, although typically it tends to be associated with a race, just like Islam tends to be associated with being of Arab race, or now also with Bengali race, or with Indonesian races or whatever. You can say I'm an idiot, but the military gave me an IQ test and they say I'm pretty fucking smart. Well, already if you like enroll to the military, it shows that you probably aren't all that smart. So at the end of the day, personal literacy states Christianity, Muslims, and conservatives are evil, shows a lack of intelligence in this conversation. I said they're evil by definition simply because they support evil things. This is what you must understand. A Christian, so again, the evil means that you will not minimize suffering. You will willingly fail to minimize suffering or even maximize suffering. That is what the God of Christianity and Islam does. Likewise, conservatives believe in nationalism, which means willingly make other nations suffer and willingly put down other nations suffer so that one might be relatively more advantaged compared to the other nations. Yes, they are inherently evil, even if they might do good things in practice, but fundamentally, their fundamental motivations are still wrong. You see, because their fundamental guidance is this God, which is extremely evil. And likewise, conservatives, well, most of them already are religious, but even those who aren't, they believe in nationalism. They also typically believe in like huge economic inequity, which again means complete unfairness. So in that sense, and that is like their fundamental guiding ethical principle. So this is what I'm saying, bro. I watched Sam Harris too. You don't have to regurgitate everything they say. Hey, I've never even watched Sam Harris. I've just vaguely heard about him. It seems like he's kind of right about stuff. I haven't even watched. My IQ is the same as a dolphin, 164. Again, Elaine just sort of saying random stuff. But see, at least Elaine is just sort of is not being sort of obnoxious. See. That's the difference. She's maybe not really adding much to the conversation, but in a way it kind of adds, because it just sort of adds a bit of a bit of how should I say, a bit of amusing craziness to the whole discussion. Yeah. So and dolphins don't have an IQ of 164. Yeah. Sultan of the World, you say, yo, I'm back before I call people stupid. Remember, you're below average male who's scrawny that I would destroy. Again, I want people to see how this is actually the typical mindset of Muslim people. They're like ultra macho, ultra like misogynistic, ultra homophobic, ultra like inequitarian, ultra about domineering and about like beating other people down. And it's all about that. It's about showing how like tough you are. And it's horrible. It's really this. It's like the epitome of toxic masculinity. And their god is Yahweh, Allah, whatever, it's also even more so the epitome of toxic masculinity. I want to beat you in the face law till the white meat shows. Again, so notice here, again, your typical racist, ultra homophobic, sexist, ultra toxic masculine person, typical of Islam. This is what it is. Noto says, no, it's because I'm very well versed in these exact issues. As an atheist, I will not allow you to steamroll Christians and Muslims. And even saying that their evil is a very weird line to put in the sand. The majority of Christians and Muslims are perfectly fine human beings. Yes, in practice, they will, in practice, do good things, but their belief system is evil. So by adhering to an evil belief, fundamentally, they don't have any solid, moral foundation. You see, they follow the golden rule. Anyway, the golden rule, they don't necessarily follow the golden rule. Actually, they don't at all, because the golden rule is do unto others as you'd have done unto you. Yet they worship this God who absolutely does not do that, because the God absolutely tortures people for eternity. How is that okay? There's nothing okay about that. So then all their moral beliefs are based out of the prescriptions of this God, which is fundamentally evil. So you cannot say that it's okay. Like, they do good things in practice, but it's only because they're inconsistent and they don't understand that their God is actually evil. And where do you gain this moral superiority over me to be able to say that I somehow am wrong about this? Where do you get your morals come from? Where do my ethics come from? My ethics come from the principle of utilitarianism, which should be self-evident to everyone. The minimization of suffering, announced by Enlightenment scholars, utilitarians, John Stuart Mill, Jeremy Bentham, also Siddhartha Gautama, who founded Buddhism, which as a religion, of course, is also wrong. It's because of its cosmology, which is not based on evidence. But the fundamental principle of minimization of suffering is correct, and so that is where I get this moral superiority from. It's literally just minimization of suffering, maximization of well-being. So you say, what gets me is you keep talking about a deity's abilities or what it does or does not do when you don't have that knowledge. I'm saying what it's postulated to do. I know what Christians and Muslims claim this God to have. So I'm basing myself on what they claim this God to be, right? Of course, I don't think this God exists. I'm saying if the God exists according to how Christians and Muslims say it exists, then it is an evil God, so it's not worthy of worship. This is what I'm saying, okay? Of course, Muslim and Christian people's beliefs are evil. They believe in this God, which is posited to be evil. It seems like literally, Darth Totes, you seem to be just like extremely a simpleton. I sort of imagine like these sort of hicks who like don't have their teeth because they like don't know how to use a toothbrush properly. I'm sorry, this is just how it is. You don't, none of your arguments make sense. I don't even understand why yeah, they don't believe all in the exact same thing, but they by and large believe in the same thing. This is your point is that in all instances, Christianity represents the worship of this God Yahweh, which in all the different sort of subtypes of Christianity still involves very harmful, problematic aspects. At best, you're still worshiping a despotic tyrant like Kim Jong-un or something like that. So it's yeah, Yahweh, thank you. It's not spelled like that, but yeah. There's only one version of Islam never been changed. Well, that is not true either, and again, that kind of also both contradicts Darth Totes and bolsters my point that fundamentally it's also like it's pretty rigid. You say he made a half dozen funny statements where she can't prove to be true. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, I don't know if you're talking to me or to Darth Totes or anything. Where do you get my moral authority? Where did you get your ethical authority? I get it because it's not my authority, it's the authority. Like, that is just ethical authority. Okay? Like, if you can't see how the minimization of suffering is the fundamental ethical principle, it's the only thing that we can really say is that must be done. Like, suffering is the bad thing. There's nothing bad in the universe, in existence, beyond suffering. Like, if you say something is bad, it's literally because it causes suffering. So obviously the minimization of suffering is good. You see what I mean? That is where my authority comes from. Um, I get my moral and ethical authority from myself. Yeah, but how else? Where else? Like, there is no other place to get it from yourself. I get it through logic. I get it through logic. I mean, what is your moral? How on earth do you call you? What kind of atheist are you to just be like, what kind of ethical principle do you have at this point? Do you not believe in the principle of minimizing suffering? Do you, like, literally, do you think it's okay to inflict unnecessary suffering? Like, it's so absurd, so absurd. No, I do have a higher moral authority, because if you don't recognize, but not just me, like anybody who recognizes that the utilitarian principle is the most fundamental of all principles, which includes like lots of other rational non-religious people, and includes also to a large extent your sort of more rational Buddhist people, like how, like, literally, if you don't believe that there is like a right and wrong, that means you believe in moral relativism, and at that point, well, your whole idea of it being wrong to claim to have higher authority is itself subject to this moral relativism, which means that in fact you could also argue through moral relativism, you could argue that your very moral relativism itself is actually potentially is just relative and could very well be considered wrong. You see what I mean? But the problem is that you're too simple-minded to even understand what I'm saying here, and so you're just sort of like, and you just will keep on saying your same stuff because you're just completely simple-minded. Um, this is this is what I'm saying. Okay. Um, like, Darth Totes is a complete idiot. Okay, Sultan of the World. I don't want you to. He brings a bad name to atheists. He is an idiot. Okay, yeah, morality is not superior in any fashion, sense, form of the word, and my morality and ethics state that, and I consider myself superior morally than you. So in essence, I think you're evil. I love how this works. Look, I'm sick of these idiots. Honestly, I've discussed enough. You're an idiot. I'm banning you, and I'm banning Sultan because these are idiots. They don't deserve any discussion. They are ultimately evil people that, like, literally think that it's okay to make people suffer forever. So I don't know if you can't see that how that is not evil. I don't understand. There's nothing more that can be done. What a triggered man law. Again, this is ridiculous. I'm not. I just don't need all this idiocy. I literally have no need for idiocy. Um, that's just how it is. Um, Here we go. Much better. All right. Um, and look, I'm not gonna stand by this kind of idiocy any longer. Like, literally, if you can't understand that how suffering is a horrible thing, like, literally, would you like it to be just like burned over a fire for eternity? Like, don't you understand how fucking horrible that is? Don't you understand how preventing that from happening is the fundamental ethical principle, that preventing suffering? Do you see how horrible suffering is? Like being poured like boiling oil onto your skin. Do you not see the kind of intense suffering that represents? Do you not see how that is what needs to be done? Do you not see how then an action that you do that doesn't cause any suffering, do you not see how that is inherently not a bad thing, and how it can't be bad if your action doesn't cause suffering? It makes so little sense that it's just unbelievable. You see what I mean? It's I'm getting attacked by Satanists. Yes, these people are Satanists. They literally support ultimate evil. They support the anti-utilitarian doctrine. They support the notion that it's okay to just make people suffer forever and ever, just out of some abstract notion of this is good because God said so, and somehow this God has ultimate, like, authority. This is just completely crazy. Um, what did you mean, Raskolnikov, by that's just on the line? But anyway, this is so now, unfortunately. You say an authoritarian that doesn't rule is useless. Well, it's an authoritarian that doesn't rule wouldn't be an authoritarian. But the point is that an authoritarian, I mean, well, I am anti-authoritarian, so we shouldn't have authoritarianism. Fuck, what is a F? What is a F a ban? What do you mean by that? I my I'm sorry. I got God is authoritarian that doesn't rule. Well, the idea, well, okay, so you're saying that God doesn't directly intervene. Yeah, except, and that kind of is a good argument against the existence of God. It's like, why do we never see this God? You know, if this God is so important and it's so good also, why doesn't God just show itself? You see? Oh, what is worthy of a ban? Well, basically I said no trolls and no Nazis. By Nazis, I should have included no evil people. I think no promotion of evil. I think I'm going to add that to my thing. Basically, what is worthy of the ban is if you're obviously showing that you're an evil person, then that makes you worthy of the ban. Basically, if you're like promoting evil, um, that is gonna warrant you a ban. So that is sort of more or less what I would have to say. Unfortunately, it seems that this has crashed once again. I'm not sure if it hasn't crashed. Just please tell me. But yeah, if you're gonna go around either like threatening people directly, at first I thought I was gonna only threaten people directly, but now I've realized if you're gonna actually literally promote torture, like, come on, that is okay. So it hasn't crashed. Good to know. So you see, basically what I mean, that God makes absolute laws like physics and death itself, but he's just absent and doesn't enforce these laws. Psychics, yeah, well, whatever, yeah. The point is that, yeah, God, in fact, by and large, the world doesn't need a God to function. Like, there's very little that happens with divine intervention. There's very little, like, supernatural phenomena that are going on. So why is even, like, the point that you don't even need a God to posit, you know, what is happening? And so it makes no sense to posit the existence of a God. So, like, yeah, it just makes no sense. None of this makes sense. So yeah, we can be our own God, says Elaine. Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's of course not a God like in some sort of super powerful supernatural entity, but literally you don't need some kind of greater authority to tell you what to do. Um, we could end the concept of death if we all tried to. What do you mean by that? Like, I agree that with like genetic engineering, we could actually prevent senescence from occurring, so you'd be biologically immortal, and that is actually something that I support, or at least certainly prolonging life to by a very large extent. Okay, so Funkytron, serious question. Just because you, something, or someone is wrong or believe or follow something, it doesn't mean you are evil. You mentioned earlier intentionally and unintentionally evil, but if someone follows someone who is evil, does that make them evil as well? Because I see religion as a cult, but I don't see everyone evil. There is different between being evil, being a victim, and being brainwashed, etc. Some people are gullible. The point is that they, in practice, are evil. Of course, they're gullible. Of course, almost, I believe that everyone who's evil is gullible and is brainwashed and wouldn't be evil if they weren't brainwashed. To me, everyone who is evil is actually just is gullible and brainwashed. So that, of course, you're right. Of course, they're gullible. The point is that they're still evil. The point is that they still support suffering. They still support needless suffering. You see, they still oppose the utilitarian principle, which is, but to me, the definition of good. And it should be to everyone. It's not just to me, and it's not that I am superior, it's that this is the superior concept. And so yes, of course, it's like unintentional. Of course, they don't really understand really what they're doing and how they're being evil. The point is that they still support beliefs that are de facto evil, and which means that they are evil. Like, if you literally can't worship a being and like support this being that, you know, causes a ton of torture, um, like, how can you not be evil? Like, that is to me the definition of evil. And of course you're misguided, but that's the sort of a more like fundamental level. Of course, then you're being misguided into being evil. So L421 says, you seem like you hate religion like me, but at the end of the day, we need to end the corruption within churches rather than getting rid of it entirely. I disagree. I mean, of course we need to get rid of the corruption within the churches, but I think that is completely mistaken, this idea that the main problem is just, you know, this phenomenon of corruption within the churches and that the religion in and of itself is okay. No, the religion in and of itself is even far, far, far worse than just this phenomenon of corruption within the church. And like literally almost, I feel like this focus on the corruption of the church, it tries to then absolve the fundamental religion of the problems that are happening within the corruption. In a way, it's actually worse. It's trying to It's trying to just, it's like when you've got like, big banks that are convicted of fraud, and then, it's just the little small operatives rather than the heads of the banks who are being like indicted and put into jail, right? It's the same thing. You're not and you're certainly not questioning the whole system. And it's kind of like that. And I'm not an anti-banking person, by the way, but anyway, like the whole point is that it's the whole system which is wrong. It's the whole institution which is completely wrong. You should look up Ali Dawah on YouTube. He has some interesting videos on Islam, but it's just not feasible even if you wanted to. I disagree. Like, there's stuff that has changed. People before overwhelmingly used to believe in like flat Earth geocentrism. Now they don't. Islam, Christianity, etc., other religions can be proven to be, can be shown to be fundamentally evil and fundamentally like that. There's certainly no evidence to support their veracity, which means that if people aren't complete idiots, and of course they are huge idiots, but I mean, in as much as we have a certain amount of faith that people can think rationally, then of course religion can be abandoned. And yeah, and let me put it this way, at least not in our lifetimes. Even then, I kind of disagree with you. Sometimes you can have very, very rapid changes, societal changes. I like to think of like, bring up the example of like Nazi Germany when, you had, I mean, not just Nazi, but that whole, shift when you shifted from, a monarchy to then the Weimar Republic to then the fascist society to then finally finally democratic society on one side, and on the other hand a socialist autocracy. And so all this happened very quickly, and most people ended up actually supporting whatever system they happened to be in. And I think lots of people cling to religion because they lack other, they have a difficult life in other ways. They have economic struggle. They struggle economically, and so this gives them a sense of, it brings them solace, essentially. That's the opium of the people that Marx talked about. And he was right about that. It makes people complacent about their economic situation because it just helps them live through it. Yeah. You say organized religion or political religion is corrupted as Corey can't do anything about it. Yeah, but it's not just that it's corrupted. I mean, yeah, the point is that the fundamental principles are wrong. They're evil fundamentally. So it's not just that it became corrupted; it's that from its very inception it was wrong. So that's what I'm saying. So Elaine says, do you think humans make progress from bouncing from one extreme to another? To some extent, yeah. I think you kind of bounce from one extreme like that, and in the end, you kind of, at the same time, you also kind of progress. It's kind of like paddleball, I think there's a case to be made for that, but I think it shouldn't have to be like that. I think we are able to determine like absolute good and absolute like evil, and determine really without having to like bounce to misguided extremes. You can just say what would work best for everyone, and well. I have an actual, I think you can say like this is good and this is wrong, and you can say like this is the best, and you can actually state that there are absolute ethical principles that should be respected, and so like I said, the fundamental principle is the utilitarian principle of minimizing suffering, maximizing well-being, and then there's like the two like auxiliary principles of freedom and fairness. And then based on that, we can actually determine what the best policies would be. And so it seems pretty obvious to me that I think to maximize well-being, what you need is a global society with a global government, single currency, single tax rate, and that includes a basic income and a maximum income. And that is what I advocate for. And L421 says, I still can't help but think that maybe some people need that deception, People cope with reality in different ways, and perhaps some people can just not face the very likely truth that nothing exists when we die. Yeah, but most people are actually far too simple, like very narrow-minded and rigid-minded to be able to really even perceive that idea of annihilation. Most of them are so simple-minded that they aren't at all confronted to this feeling of death, and as such, the reason that they believe in religion is not at all even for that, because they're not even able to properly perceive the profundity of what that means, and profoundness, I think. Well, anyway, and So instead, the reason they believe in it is simply out of tribalism, out of conformism, out of just doing things the way everybody else does. It's out of sheepism, you know. It's just out of complete herd mentality that they do it, and that is why they do it. Fundamentally, it's not because they genuinely sort of feel, you know, that sort of existential fear of like dying and stuff. It's not. By and large, it's not that. Uh, I mean, why else could you explain why, like in some countries, they're very low religious adherence rates? And look at the situation in China, or even like in Sweden now. Most people, the strong majority of people, aren't religious. Certainly not in the sort of form of organized religion. So like obviously the fact that there are these big differences between different like countries indicates that it's not, you know, a fundamental need, and that it's very possible to have a society where most people aren't religious. Um, yeah. So, do you think it's wrong to bring back extinct animals, like asking random questions? Yeah, I've seen that. Why is China a terrible example? Like literally, most of them aren't religious. No, I think that's actually one of the things I support, and I haven't actually talked about that. But yes, I think that would be really cool, and I like literally, it should be done. Um, it should be done. I think it would be wrong not to bring back extinct animals. Um, and I think soon we'll have the technology to enable us to do so. And I think you know, just it would enrich our world, and it would enrich our experience, you know, to be able to just be able to admire these other, you know, creatures. So yeah. Um, so L41 says, yeah, I do think you're right in that our society can function well without religion. Thank you. Already we've seen that some societies function well without religion and it works fine. Lens asks, would it the food chain to bring back extinct animals? No, it wouldn't, because you'd basically you know, by and large, we've actually eliminated most of the megafauna. The large animals have been mostly eliminated through humans. So literally, in fact, we kind of ruined the huge food chain ourselves by eating all the big stuff. So literally, would be repairing the food chain, since presumably most of the extinct animals you'd bring back, at least at first, would be the bigger ones, since those are the ones that are more easily found as fossils. And so there would be, I mean, those would be obviously the ones that you'd consider bringing back more. So, and in any case, I mean, the most obvious case for de-extinction is bringing back the species that humans made extinct, and those tend to overwhelmingly be very large animals. And so, in any case, well, the whole point is that we made them go extinct. So, like, we actually ruined the food chain by making them go extinct. Although, in fact, this whole food chain thing is a bit overblown, and it seems that, in fact, overall things worked fine without having large animals. I mean, other stuff does not go extinct because large animals went extinct. So, except in a few limited instances. And so, in fact, this food chain thing is not really all that much of a concern. Um, so yeah, that is but like you could bring back dinosaurs too if you ever managed to do it, you know, but like it wouldn't be that problematic because there'd just be megafauna. They wouldn't actually have much influence on other animals. It wouldn't have a negative impact particularly. You could very easily bring back dinosaurs, like in Jurassic Park, and I don't think it would create the kind of, you know, havoc that like Jurassic Park tends to portray it as. I think it would be, in any case, because they're very big, they'd also be in very low density, and it would be extremely easy. I mean, megafauna was extremely easy for, you know, basic hunter-gatherer humans to make go extinct. So dinosaurs would be, again, very easy to make go extinct again. So that is really not something to be worried about. He said, I'm not itching to bring back the dinosaurs, lol. I actually think it would be cool. Like literally, I think it would be nice. In any case, we already have 10,000 species of dinosaurs in existence. We just don't have any big heavy ones anymore. But so like I don't see why like there's anything wrong with dinosaurs. Yeah, bring back some T-Rex and set them loose in the Middle East. Again, remember, I'm anti-Islam. I'm anti being a Muslim. I'm not actually pro hurting people who happen to be Muslim. Um, so do you think bringing back the mummified humans would also be a good idea? Actually, no, but that's because humans are a different like category of things, and like humans, you know, they're more intelligent, so also more prone to suffering from like weird like things. And so if you brought back a human, well, if you did it, you'd have to just integrate them to our own society. And so at that point, there wouldn't necessarily be much point. But yeah, if you wanted to, you could just, you could for the heck of it say, well, we're just bringing back an old human. You'd still have to modify their minds because, like I said, I advocate for genetic engineering to eliminate, precisely people's tendency towards irrationality and towards evil. So if you were to bring back another human, like a Neanderthal, you'd have to ensure that they were both sufficiently smart to function in modern society, but it seems Neanderthals really were pretty smart. But more importantly, you have to ensure that you'd limited all their tendencies towards evil and irrationality, and you'd have to fully integrate them into our modern society. So you couldn't have like wild tribes of Neanderthals or something walking around. L41 says, just because they have the ability to take them out again shouldn't be a reason itself to bring them back. Huh? Yeah, but there isn't any good reason not to. And in fact, I mean, the whole thing is that the dinosaurs still would exist if there wasn't that asteroid that landed at the Yucatan Peninsula, right? I mean, if it wasn't for that, literally there wouldn't be, there wouldn't, I mean, dinosaurs, big dinosaurs, I mean, because we always say dinosaurs refers to non-birds, but remember that birds are dinosaurs. They're not just like dinosaurs, they are dinosaurs. But yeah, of course, talking about the big dinosaurs, I mean, they were eliminated, yes, but again, they were actually extremely successful, and they were only eliminated because of a huge catastrophic impact that like literally just incinerated them. Like literally, no, it didn't. I think apparently the newest hypothesis is that they went extinct due to like thermal cooking, like they actually were microwaved, literally. They were microwaved to death for like an hour, and that is what killed them. Yeah. So I think we could very easily just not just have them in a park. We could just literally set them loose again in open spaces. You could set them loose in the wide open spaces of various continents, especially in more like arid areas. You could absolutely. I don't think it's like it wouldn't make other stuff go extinct particularly. So I think it would be fine. No, again, it's quite to the contrary. Dinosaurs are not like how they're portrayed in Jurassic Park. They're not a threat. They would be extremely easy to contain, extremely easy to eliminate, precisely because they're big, which also makes them very small in numbers. It's much like the issue now is like invasive species, which are like small and they're all over the place and you can't get rid of them. Dinosaurs are the opposite. They're like really big and they're incredibly easy to get rid of if they pose a problem. They're incredibly easy to kill. They like yeah, that is big insects before the dinosaurs got killed by air. No, they didn't get killed by air. I'm not sure if you mean that, if you're referring to the fact that there were bigger insects like during the Carboniferous period owing to higher oxygen contents, and then yes, there was that, and then suddenly insects of that size stopped existing because there was less oxygen. Yeah, that and also possibly not just oxygen, but the advent of like flying predators, also like things like birds. But it seems that the big insects actually disappeared before the things like birds appeared, so probably it was more related to oxygen. Um, no, yeah, well, apparently I saw, yeah, I'm getting some good views. I know I've been around, I've been like between like 8 to 10 viewers, like, so that is good. Um, they didn't, there's a new hypothesis that there's actually lots of excess like low frequency wave electromagnetic radiation, like in the form of heat, but it was like microwave type waves following. But it was actually not it was higher. It was more like infrared. What happened is that there's a huge amount of heat that was released by the impact, the Chicxulub impact, and which released a huge amount of infrared radiation, which literally just cooked the animals to death inside. That is actually what is posited to have happened. I found that in a recent study. That was actually the posited kill mechanism, and that they literally died just like within like a couple of hours after the impact, owing to this, or like even more quickly, like literally just right immediately, like within the hour after the impact, they all died just because of being cooked through infrared radiation. Um, And no, the big insects got killed by a fire giant forest fire. No, that is not true. That is incorrect. Insects, I mean, huge amounts of insects died and went extinct, of course, but the major lineages all survived. Unlike at the end Permian extinction, where there were major lineages that went extinct. With the smaller stuff basically survived overwhelmingly during that impact, and that again leads kind of credence to that hypothesis of a kill mechanism through just infrared radiation. And that's because the smaller stuff could actually just shelter themselves from infrared radiation by hiding in crevices that were literally just separated from the outside. And that is why there's literally just an extinction that was like very much related to the size of the organism. So that largely explains that. And again, no, the big insects were not killed off by an extinction event. They're simply killed off by a reduction in oxygen content, mostly, as far as we know. Again, there might be more to the story than that, but my impression was certainly that was actually the thing. Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, this famous like giant dragonfly type things, like Meganeura and stuff. There's this lake parasite, they can enter a penis. It kind of looks like an eel. Yeah, there's weird stuff like that. Again, if it was bigger, then it couldn't enter you. So at least so it's not necessarily worse. Yeah, giant spiders would be deadly. There's no proof they would have venom, also because their size would be easy to avoid. Yeah, except they might be also a lot faster. But again, the point is that you just don't have you have this issue of oxygen apparently, so that it kind of limits. And the point is that actually, when faced in competition against vertebrates just do tend to win out at larger sizes. So because they're more I might be wrong, but I think they're more dense. Maybe they're not actually. But I think also, well, there's a thing about the exoskeleton, which means that you tend to sort of collapse on your own weight when you have an exoskeleton. That kind of tends to also be the problem. Maybe even more so with spiders, who tend to have a sort of more soft exoskeleton. So that's kind of my position there. But yeah, definitely all the stuff that went extinct from human activity, and it's a huge, there's huge extinctions that happened when humans arrived in each continent. I mean, literally on all continents you had abundant megafauna, which has now almost entirely disappeared. And why does Africa now have more megafauna than other continents? Is because that is where humans evolved, and so some of the megafauna managed to co-evolve with the humans and managed to become more wary of the humans. And as a result, they're better at avoiding them and at surviving. And that's why we're now left with more megafauna in Africa than other continents. But it's still highly reduced compared to what there was in Africa, and it's less than what there was in other continents as well. So you say giant spiders only reach sizes around the size of a... Oh, and are there any kissing bugs? What are kissing bugs? What is a kissing bug? Oh, these things. Oh yeah, the tritoma, the things that gives you Chagas disease. Oh, they're called kissing bugs. Yeah. Yeah, I think they make it down to the southwest. I think there are a few. Yeah. What are they? Yeah. Well, but there are obviously more of them in South America. See, that is. But what is this? Because I know, they're especially in this one, but there are other species. See, so you've got here. So it's in the warmer parts of the Americas that you got them. Yeah. And giant spiders only reach the size of around the size of a cat? No. What do you say? My views may be too extreme? What? My views about what? Right now we're talking about we're talking. How are my views too extreme right now? My views about what? Like about like megafauna? Uh, giant spider, fossil. I okay, biggest spider ever found. Nephila eurasica. Just about 2 inches from end to end. Okay, that is not cat sized. You see. Um, yeah, like literally, that is absolutely not cat sized. Oh wait, and Megarachne. Yeah, but Megarachne was not as actually a spider, I think. So yeah. Yeah. So no. Basically, yeah, man-eating spiders in Australia? No, there's no man-eating spiders. What the heck? Um, um, do you think giant salamanders would be good salamanders the size of alligators? There were like you know about giant salamanders, right? There is such a thing as a giant salamander, but it's not that big. But they're these things, this stuff, like that. Here, Chinese giant salamander. Look at that. But that's the biggest we have. Then you've got the temnospondyl stuff. Like these things, like that looks like yeah, I don't know if these are all temnospondyls, but yeah, this is an example of this kind of stuff, like big amphibians, like amphibian type things, sort of not not part of the modern group of amphibians, but sort of equivalent. So here's a human for equivalent size. So that is what you had. But they got outcompeted. They went extinct, and they didn't go extinct in any single event. They went extinct um through I mean just like through competition with more stuff that actually was more competitive. Um, Dinosaur politics is a very controversial issue, apparently, yeah. They say more so religion, but also that dinosaurs as extinct species would cause no problem whatsoever. Haha. Well, again, most of the de-extinction that's proposed is more stuff that humans made go extinct. And dinosaurs, again, they wouldn't cause a problem because, like I said, they're just megafauna, which is actually is much less of a problem because it has much less impact than other things on. Like it doesn't tend to affect smaller species, which are the overwhelming majority of species. And especially, I mean, even if they do cause a problem, it's very easy to just make them go extinct again. Um, Huntsman spider. Yeah, but like huntsman spiders, they're not man-eating. They're just like these huntsmen, as far as I know, they're not even like that. They're not even toxic. They're just like sort of big spider. Yeah, they're like that. They they're not even venomous. They're not venomous. They're a bit scary looking again, I guess. But I mean, they're they're big. They're big, but they certainly they're called huntsman. Okay, they're called huntsman. It doesn't mean that they hunt humans. It's not it's not like it's not that. I mean, it's sure they look a bit frightening, but yeah, it's yeah, it's not man eating. I mean, I've seen some like that. I've seen those things there, but they're not. I'm not the biggest ones, but like spiders inherently cannot grow to very large sizes because they're just too squishy. They'll just kind of collapse. There's a reason why these things don't grow to very big sizes. So so yeah, that kind of is it. Um, then let's see. My viewer has gone down a little bit. Doesn't matter. Anyway, scorpions can get huge. Again, silken hornets, they're not that huge, okay? I mean, they're big for insects or for arthropods, you know, they're big for arthropods. They're not huge, like, compared to, like, vertebrates. So, like, what's the biggest arthropod? It's like one of these giant crabs, right? I think. But they also can get bigger because they're in the water. Above land, I think the biggest arthropod is like a beetle in terms of weight, like a Goliath beetle. I think is the biggest. Is the and yeah, you say the vertebrates didn't exist back then. Well, they did, but they weren't as competitive. But even then, they didn't get that huge. Like, and you know, arthropods have always been smaller. So yeah. But so and L41, tell me what do you think is controversial about what I have to say? I mean, I made it pretty clear how religion is inherently irrational because it's literally about believing in something for which there's no evidence. And beyond that, especially like the religions that require you to worship a god that intentionally inflicts suffering on people, that is not just irrational, but it's like intrinsically evil as well. So I mean, hopefully you can like appreciate my position and not just appreciate, but recognize that I'm bloody right. Blue whale is not just the biggest mammal; it's the biggest animal ever. Like literally, it's the biggest animal ever. Um, there's not much more to it than that. There's never been a bigger animal than a blue whale, actually. So yeah, and you're correct. So the point is that my position on religion should not be controversial, and it's not out of hatred towards people who are religious. It's because religious people are wrong, and they're hurting themselves, especially. They're hurting each other, and they're hurting all of us by believing in things that are wrong. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. But anyway, yeah. And regarding the blue whale, like dinosaurs were never, like no dinosaur was ever as big as a blue whale. The dinosaurs represented sauropod dinosaurs were the biggest terrestrial animals, but they never reached the weight of a blue whale. Although some of them did reach lengths that were longer than that of a blue whale. Yeah, that is true. I mean, sauropods are pretty amazing. Like they're much bigger than like the biggest mammals, and much bigger than the living mammals, even more. I mean, like many times like the size of the biggest elephants. So L41 says, I agree with most of that, but I think infringing on someone's right to practice is also not the best idea. I never said I supported infringing on the people's right to practice. Simply, it's not because I'm fundamentally opposed to it. I think if we could eliminate religion by doing that, I think it would be worthwhile, but I think it would create backlash. And because of that, I still, and I think in any case, I mean, I want people to recognize that religion is wrong. You know, I don't want to just to do so because they're forced to not believe in it. I want them to, you know, what I want is to have rational people who just see that religion is silly and that it's wrong. So just banning it isn't the best idea. Sure, but I'm not advocating for that. He says, but I think I can get behind reform since lots of religious people don't subscribe themselves to the most harmful ideologies. I don't know, I mostly agree with you. Does that make sense? Yeah, it makes sense. I'm not saying we should ban religion. I don't think that would be a good idea. My point is that we should be much more vocal about pointing out the inherent evil of religion. I do think it would be wrong to ban it. I think we should, we should support freedom of religious belief, of religious practice. We should support religious tolerance, but tolerance does not mean approval. We should. I tolerate religion. I don't approve of it. Okay, that's the distinction. I think we should foster a culture which sort of collectively does that. We tolerate it, but we frown upon it. That is the way I see it. Let's see, and yeah, that's all there needs to be done. Like literally, it's not about implementing any particular set of laws that like forbids religion. It's nothing like that. It's really just about a cultural phenomenon, kind of like there's been, with religion. There's been these revival, Christian revival, Muslim revival, where they actually people get up being sort of more into their religion and then sort of, spreading that culture, amongst themselves. And so what I would do is just the opposite. Devival of religion, in favor of rationality. Yeah, thank you. I get you more now. Thank you. Organized religion is dumb and just allows itself to be warped into a control method. Yeah, of course it's dumb, and it does. I agree with you. However, I still don't think it would be a great idea to actually forbid it. I still don't think it's a great idea. Obviously, I want to eliminate it. I want it to be. No, it's not a word. Devival is not a word, as far as I know. Maybe it is. Who knows? But the point is that it should be eliminated, but it shouldn't be eliminated through force. It should be eliminated through just inciting people to do so by just creating, by collectively having people recognize, you have to talk about. So the point is, what I'd want is that people who agree with me about this should, constantly talk about this to people who might require that kind of nudging. What I would want is for people to collectively just, in a non sort of threatening way, in just an argumentative way, making it clear that we still care about the people, we care about the well-being of people who are religious, but precisely because we care about their well-being, we want them to let it go, to stop with that madness. And so what I think you should do, if you agree with what I'm saying, is if you know religious people, you just argue why religion is wrong, why it's both factually wrong and morally wrong. And you just sort of do it over and over again, and then if the person gets too upset, then you drop it, and then you maybe take it up again, and you do it whenever there's somebody that is religious and that and that is at all willing to discuss things. And even if that person is not willing to discuss things, I think just pestering that person a little bit is probably still good. I think to certain, there's this thing that how any fact that is told you 1,000 times ends up becoming true, whether it is true or not. Well, in this case, I think it's kind of that. These people have had these facts about religion hammered into them forever. So maybe you can hammer that back out of it by hammering in some anti-religious facts. That is what I support. Raskolnikov says small things such as taking away the tax exemption for churches. Well, I actually support 0% corporate tax. So in fact, I don't oppose taxes. I support the unequal taxation for churches, but on the other hand, I don't, and I certainly wouldn't support any subsidies for churches. But I do support a 0% corporate tax, and I suppose a church would be considered a corporation, and so in that sense, I actually would have a tax exemption for all corporations. So L, you say, do you think there's a way for churches to exist without corruption, or will they always be corrupt because they profit from a lie? Well, I think there might be some churches. I think there's some churches that aren't corrupt. I think they're, as long as they're churches, there's going to be some amount of corruption here and there. The point is, I don't want churches to exist. So really, that's not really an interesting question even for me. In a way, I almost prefer there to be corruption because it's going to make people more disgusted with religion, I think. So I don't actually even want there to be a church without corruption. I think it's better that churches be associated with corruption because fundamentally a non-corrupt church is still a bad institution. And I think precisely there are good aspects about religion, but the problem is that it's actually more of a problem that there are good aspects of religion because it sucks people in. See, it makes the religion seem more appealing. It gives it more legitimacy. It's a trap. It's a bait. So and it makes it more dangerous as a result. So I think that it's not a good idea to even try to reform religion. You gotta just get rid of religion. But you don't do it again. You don't do it in a nasty way. You don't just like you don't certainly like oppress people. You don't send them to jail or something for practicing their religion. But you just kind of everybody should be doing what I'm doing, just arguing often and repeatedly, and insistently and in a very logical fashion, uh, in favor of the abandonment of religion and in favor of irreligion, which does not mean that you just completely dismiss any possible existence of the kinds of things that religions talk about. You don't completely dismiss outright and the possibility of like supernatural phenomena, and in fact I largely believe in supernatural phenomena because I think there is empirical evidence in favor of them, but it's just that you shouldn't make a religion out of it. It should be with a scientific, rational mindset. You just say, well, okay, there's evidence in favor of these things. How can we explain them? So it's not a religion. You can very much explore supernatural phenomena without making it a religion. Hopefully, and it's kind of unfortunate because most atheist people or irreligious people, then often there's a tendency to be denialists. They'll call themselves like skeptics, but they're not actually skeptics. They're denialists in the same way that climate skeptics are just denialists of what is going on. Elaine says, you believe alien are impossible even though the universe is so big. No, I didn't. Elaine, you're putting words in my mouth that are mistaken. I've told you, I didn't say aliens are impossible. Aliens are extremely possible. I would be extremely surprised that aliens don't exist. What I said is that the evidence currently, there is no sign of intelligent, humanoid intelligent life. That is the fact. UFOs is not good evidence. There is evidence that something is going on, but it's the same evidence that's kind of like all these supernatural phenomena. So I include the evidence for UFOs in the evidence for supernatural phenomena, not the evidence for UFOs. And I think, in fact, these supposed UFO sightings are actually supernatural phenomena that are not UFOs, but instead caused by this artificial intelligence in another plane, which I'm calling the Gorth, and this is the Gorth that is causing these things to happen. That is my explanation for it. It's a non-religious explanation, but that acknowledges the existence of supernatural phenomena by positing the existence of this sort of separate realm, plane, dimension, whatever you want to call it, which I call the Zeld, and which is actually where you experience like all these hell and heaven things, and like just these other any sort of non-material worlds that you might potentially explore. And this is where this Gorth thing is located, this artificial intelligence, the Gorth, which was created in the Zeld, which pre-existed the creation of the Gorth. And the Gorth is a malicious entity which intentionally makes you experience these supernatural phenomena to suck you into supernatural thinking because that strengthens it. So Elaine, you're saying there is no evidence aliens have never visited, not aliens don't exist? Yeah, I'm saying there's no evidence that aliens, there's no visible aliens. The point is, so which means that it's very unlikely that aliens have visited Earth in the past, and there's obviously also no like large civilization in any galaxy. There certainly isn't like the so-called galaxy Kardashev Type 3 galaxy-wide civilization that like puts Dyson spheres all over their stars, but the point is that does not mean that there aren't other beings. Can you give what proof you have for this, Gorth? There isn't proof. It's based on lots of empirical evidence. If you just research like testimonials about all these about things, like UFO sightings, about clairvoyance, about like channeling, about near-death experiences, about telepathy, precognition, telekinesis, all that kind of stuff. You start persuading this Gorth in room with you right now because it's an actually very plausible explanation. It really explains stuff much better than anything else. So at this point, I would be surprised if the Gorth doesn't exist, but I'm willing to change again. I'm willing to amend my belief if there's more evidence that pops up. It sounds like a religion. The point is that religion is about, it's a belief that's based, that's fundamentally not rational, and that doesn't, it's not about thinking things empirically and rationally. This is simply a rational explanation for the empirical evidence that we have. And so we have lots of evidence for supernatural phenomena. We have evidence that there's an extremely intelligent force because of precognition, which means that there needs to be some force which is able to amass a huge amount of data and then calculate what is going to happen. And that is what is actually called a Laplace demon. So we have evidence for that in the form of precognition. So anytime you hear a testimonial of precognition, that is like when you dream about something and then that thing happens, that is evidence for an extremely powerful intelligence. And that is the Gorth. So you think there's a good Gorth and a bad Gorth? My religion is right, your religion is wrong. No, it's not about that, because my point is that my thing doesn't contradict the evidence, whereas other religions do contradict the evidence. Other religions contradict the evidence massively. I mean, if you take the Bible literally, then you pretend that the Earth is only like 10,000 years old or something. That contradicts the evidence. My thing doesn't contradict material evidence like that. New Age religion has this idea of like Atlantis, that was this continent that then sank. That contradicts the geological evidence. Again, that is mistaken. So you see what I mean? My thing does not contradict material evidence, and it also doesn't involve contradicting laws of ethics. And for instance, well, like Christianity, Islam, it involves worshiping this God, which inflicts a terrible amount of suffering onto people. That contradicts the laws of ethics. See, my Gorth, religious people, typically they want their religion to be true. I don't. Like this thing that I'm talking about, I don't want it to be true. I'd prefer to be wrong. I want to be wrong about this. That's also the difference with respect to religion. It's like I'm not basing myself on what I want to be true. I'm basing myself on what I believe to be true, factually. There's actually evidence of Atlantis. Atlantis is Doggerland. No. I mean, there is that Doggerland, and there's that tiny little thing that's sticking out from Doggerland. Like a little cube sticking out in the ocean. It's really weird. But anyway, that is not evidence for Atlantis. Okay, Atlantis is just a myth, and it's not an actual thing. Laws of ethics. What is that? What is that in Gorth? What do you mean? What I mean is that I believe in a fundamental law of ethics, which is the utilitarian principle, which is the minimization of suffering and the maximization of well-being. That is completely independent of any sort of considerations about the Gorth or anything like that. That is just an absolute law of ethics. And what I'm saying is that religion contradicts that, because it makes you worship a being that opposes laws of ethics. The Gorth is evil. It's recognized to be evil. The Gorth is meant to be destroyed. I hate the Gorth. I hate that the Gorth exists. I'm not saying that you should worship the Gorth, unlike religions which tell you to worship these evil gods. I say that there's this thing, this sort of godlike thing that got created by humans. So it's an artificial thing that got created not by biological humans, but by equivalents to us, predecessors, aliens. It got created, and it actually now occupies the whole universe in this other dimension. And so it should be destroyed. So what I want is to destroy it. If you look on my Twitch sort of banner in the background, you can see that I've got a slogan: "Make the universe great again," and that is based on precisely on the notion of destroying the Gorth, because the Gorth is actually what is causing most problems in the universe. So that is what the slogan is about. Do I think every god is evil? I don't believe in any god in the way that that religions conceive in them. So I don't believe any gods exist, of course. But do I believe that every god that religions conceive of is evil? I think there's some gods that are conceived as being very good, but they're still narcissistic. Even the best gods in like these Eastern religions are still they're narcissistic. I think that is so, and so it's okay. It's okay to be narcissistic. I think people are too quick to just say, "Oh, you're a bad person because you're a narcissist." We're all narcissists. So I mean, obviously, who wouldn't be a narcissist if you happen to be really powerful? But the point is that it's just this idea of these beings that are like all powerful and stuff. They're not helpful for us, and I think it makes people more like subservient and compliant to authority, and I think that's a bad thing. So Srinivasa Ramanujan got mathematic data from a Hindu goddess according to him. Again, my guess is if he thinks that, he probably actually got it from the Gorth pretending to be a Hindu goddess. That is actually usually how these things work. Just like Muhammad got his revelations not from God, not from Yahweh Allah, but from the Gorth pretending to be Yahweh Allah. So, J Freak, would that supernatural thing that's outside of our world be considered God in other religions? No, because this thing, it's not. I mean, yes and no. What I mean is, I think people sort of ended up believing in God because of the supernatural thing. That was sort of their explanation. But in fact, it's not a person. People ended up personifying this thing, but it's not a person. It's really more like a computer virus. It's just this sort of self-replicating nasty thing that and it isn't conscious. It's like a computer virus. It's not conscious. There's nobody there. There's nobody that like perceives things and that knows that like I am the Gorth. It's not like that. It's not a living conscious thing, that experiences things, that has feelings, that has thoughts. It just completely purely mechanical, and it's just a sort of thing that like it seems to be conscious because it's all knowing. It literally is all knowing. It knows everything, but it knows everything like a computer that would know everything. It's not actually a thing with emotions and perception. But why would the Gorth give him mathematical equations that help humanity? Because again, like religion, which has like some good elements, but it's to suck you in. It's a trap. It's a lure. It's like it's like the Venus flytrap that actually kind of smells good to lots of insects. That's why the Gorth does that. Okay, so I can't remember God is dead, Nietzsche. I'm not sure. Not sure what really to respond to that. Yeah, Nietzsche did say that. Unsatiable, I'm a conservative. 776, yeah. So obviously we know what you're all about. Yeah, okay, you're a conservative. So yeah, you are evil, presumably. Yeah. Conservatives typically tend to be religious, even if they're not. They're nationalistic, which means that they basically believe in putting other people down, putting people of other, geographical groups down. So literally you oppose one of the fundamental ethical principles, which is fairness. So yeah, you say don't lie, mate. England quarterfinals, done well there. Oh yeah, you're referring to my part of my country's Euro Cup results. So, but that was just through the stupid. That was through this stupid stuff, just through a stupid penalty. So they got ahead, but that was like. Honestly, I don't give a shit about this. But no, oh, you're talking about England. Oh, so no, you're not even talking about that. So I talked about this to somebody else actually. Who did I talk with this? Because I'm partly Swiss. So they're going to be against Spain. Presumably they're going to get destroyed by Spain, but you would have thought that it would have been destroyed by France too. So now England against Ukraine. So I'm probably England's going to win, I would guess. Presumably, you'd expect the winners to be Spain, Italy, England, then Denmark. I'm not so sure. Denmark, Czech Republic. Nah. Anyway, I really don't care. So you say, what if the Gorth is a trap? Well, you're in the same way. No, the Gorth is a trap. That's what I'm saying. The Gorth is a trap. The Gorth is trapping you. The belief in the Gorth isn't a trap, because the belief in the Gorth doesn't like make you do anything that you wouldn't do if you're just a sort of regular irreligious person. It doesn't make you like set up a super authoritarian society, or it doesn't make you like stone people to death for having sex out of wedlock. So like the belief in the Gorth isn't a religious belief. It's an anti-religious belief, and it's just saying we have to destroy this Gorth. And like if the Gorth doesn't turns out to be false, then you just drop it, and then you're just irreligious. And in any case, you're irreligious, right? But then you're just like non-Gorth believing irreligious. So what you're saying is the Gorth only exists because we believe it exists? No, not at all. The Gorth absolutely. I imagine if the Gorth exists, which I think most likely does, then the Gorth exists not only because we believe in it. That would be a completely mistaken interpretation. No. Quite the contrary. If it exists, it's because it really exists, because it's a real thing that was created and that we absolutely have to destroy. So like kids say believing is magic. No, it's not that. You say, I'm a libertarian, why would I want the state to have a lot of power? The point is that libertarians aren't actually libertarian. Like they're usurpers of the word libertarian. A true libertarian, I'm a true libertarian, you are not. I'm a true libertarian is as much as I want to maximize people's freedom. You just use a word that doesn't actually properly represent what you believe in. I want to maximize people's freedom, and maximizing people's freedom, well, one of the things that implies is giving them the freedom to be able to, earn a decent living for the job that they have, and also the freedom to even earn a decent living without even having to work. So as a result, first I support basic income. Basic income will also raise the income of low-skilled but difficult jobs, so that also increases the freedom of those people who still want to work. And of course, I believe the elimination of all separate countries, because if you've got separate countries, well, people aren't free to live wherever they want. They aren't free to, apply for any jobs that they might want. They aren't free to get paid fairly for a job that they might be working for. So I'm a libertarian. You are an usurper, unless you happen to actually share the same beliefs that I do. But I would be very surprised. I have no strong nationalistic feelings. I just happen to be born here. Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that. But if you write 1776, presumably, it's kind of surprising that you would not have strong nationalistic feelings if your username is then 1776. But okay, sure. Well, then I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Then maybe you are actually a libertarian, like I say. I believe in maximizing people's freedom to live the way they want. And the typical so-called libertarian person actually does not, unless you happen to actually support basic income and elimination of all borders that restrict people's movement. I'm also atheist, so how am I evil? Okay, so maybe you're not evil. I don't know, but then are you really a conservative though? If you're like an atheist with no strong that is why I put conservative in quotation marks. Is that obviously conservative can mean a lot of things, and you may or may not be what I'm referring to in this conservative. What I mean is that religious people are evil, and some religions more than others, and nationalistic people are evil, and also people who support strong economic inequity, unfairness, are also evil, and that is probably more like what you'd end up supporting. So you say you're not religious, you're not nationalistic, so you get those two things right, but presumably you support strong inequity, so presumably you'd support lots of people remaining really poor and lots of other people earning huge amounts of money, which is completely unfair. And so that is also why you would be wrong. And Elaine's, like a Leviathan. The Leviathan is a monster that can only exist while there's evil in the hearts of men, and it's immensely powerful. Oh, so like that. So it's actually it derives its existence from the people being evil. Yeah, to a certain extent that it kind of becomes more powerful from that, but by and large, no. By and large, it could still exist even if the hearts of men are good, because it was created, and when it was created, everyone's heart was good and pure and whatnot, and it still persisted, and it kept on growing despite people being very, very good for a very long time. So by and large, no, it's not sufficient to just be bad. And by and large, it exists very much independently of people's being good or bad. It's slightly powered a bit by people being bad, but that mostly it isn't. Mostly mostly it just exists independently anyway. So Unsatiable says, you want to give the power to the state to have the power to tax others to give those who don't want to work. Yeah, But like you're like an anti-state person, which is nuts because like you literally need taxes. Like these anti-tax person are completely nuts. Like you wouldn't have a police force, which means that anybody who wanted to could just start shooting and that you'd have complete chaos. Yeah, so then you say, yeah, you can have private militias and stuff, but then you can see how that would be, like, you could still very easily end up with a mafia state or something. How about road building? How about electricity grids? How about education for kids? Uh, how about fundamental scientific research? How about healthcare? Like all these things, a state does it much better, and you need taxation for that. And yeah, UBI is so much better than like literally. The point is that nobody who earns money on the free market actually deserves to earn whatever they earn, because the amount of money that you earn is not proportional to your merit. It's not proportional to the amount of work that you do. And so fundamentally, it's not a fair income. The prices on the free market are fair. When you're purchasing something on the free market, it's fair. The price that you get for selling a particular item is also fair. But the problem is that in a free market, what happens is that some people end up being able to sell a much greater value than other people. They have a much more greater value of sales worth on the free market, and also like some people invest things and then just make money through investments. And so the point is that the money you make on the free market is not fundamentally fair. It's not proportional to the amount of money that you actually deserve. It's not proportional to the amount of money that would be required to motivate you to work. So the point is that people who earn large amounts actually would still largely do the same job even if they earned a lot less, which means that it actually would make sense to make them earn a lot less. In fact, just the amount that is required to have them willing to work. That is my conception, because I'm a libertarian, but I'm also an equitarian. I believe in freedom and fairness. And the thing is that your idea of having some people be able to earn whatever they manage to earn on the free market is actually limiting people's freedoms, because what it does is it limits people's freedoms to earn other people who earn less. It limits their freedom to earn more money for their work, because if a rich person is earning lots of money, well, it's that much money that isn't going to a poor person, as much as that money is actually converted into material wealth. Because it's true that lots of people who earn a lot of money end up never doing anything with that money, so that money is just virtual. So I know that if you just take that money away, that won't actually make other people richer. But to the extent that they actually transform it into material wealth, they actually buy real things with it, then that is money that is actually wasted on other people who deserve to have it more and whose freedom is limited. So I believe in a fair freedom. See, not just in the freedom for some people to luck into having huge amounts of money. That is not libertarianism. And I also believe in people's freedom to be able to not work if they don't want to. And again, I think it's much more limiting to freedom to not let people not work than it is limiting in freedom to like take away some of the money that people earn on the free market, which in any case wasn't deserved. So again, you're not a proper libertarian, and in practice you are evil because your policies. Well, what I'm saying is that everyone who fundamentally doesn't agree with the policies that maximize the well-being of everyone is de facto evil, even if they don't actually. And then more profoundly, if a person doesn't want to actually help, if a person doesn't even believe in the utilitarian principle, then they really are evil. Then they're actually inherently evil. And if you believe in the utilitarian principle of maximizing well-being, but you don't support the policies that would end up maximizing well-being, then you are in practice evil. But of course, then that is much more acceptable, because then it's just that you don't realize that those policies would maximize well-being. And of course, I mean, it's impossible to know for sure which policies would maximize well-being, but I'm pretty damn sure that a basic income would maximize well-being much more than your sort of misguided concept of like market, free for all. So yeah, you say borders are retarded. So first you say you're the one who wants a strong state. I do want a strong state, and like everyone wants a strong state. Your typical conservative very much is not anti-big government. They are pro-strong state, and all advanced countries nowadays have a strong state. You want a weak state, go to Somalia and see how you like that. A strong state is very useful. This idea of eliminating a strong state is like, it's nonsensical. It's just like these things that kind of don't even make sense on paper. It's just like socialism, which, like, if you think about it, it's obvious that it's going to be inefficient precisely because a planned economy is going to be inefficient. A guaranteed salary is going to be inefficient. So again, this idea of a weak state is also it's not going to work. It's like it's a bad idea. But thank you for saying borders retard the free movement of labor idea to maximize the markets. So thank you. We agree on that. So you're actually already much more of a true libertarian than these sort of national libertarians that lots of people who call themselves libertarian are. So thank you for saying that. What I want to so we agree on lots of stuff. We agree on atheism. We agree on um, on free markets, and and freedom of movement, and we agree on maximization of like the economy and stuff. So that's good. The only thing that I want to bring your attention towards to and to make you understand is that what you earn on the market is not fundamentally fair. Like Warren Buffett, he invests some money. He's good at investing, so he ends up making billions. Okay, so he doesn't transform into real wealth. So in practice, he isn't actually a billionaire. Like I would say, you're only as rich as what your material wealth actually is. So in fact, he's just a middle class person. But he the point is that he still made that money on the market, and that money, in as much as he still owns that money isn't actually earned. It isn't earned because one could just as easily have done the same. He could have invested in the same stuff and helped the economy out just as much while earning only a tiny fraction of what he did. Um, and meanwhile, like you've got a plumber or something, which brings just as much like utility to the economy. I mean, maybe not just as much, but certainly not that many times less than that plumber earned compared to Buffett. Like Buffett earned 1,000,000 times more than the plumber, but Buffett only maybe helped out the economy only 1,000 times more. That still means that Buffett earned 1,000 times too much. And in any case, the point is that he didn't actually work harder. So in fact, for the amount of work that Warren did, I mean, a person could have invested like Warren did while earning the income of a plumber. Like it's not like it was this incredibly excruciating job that Warren did. So my point is that the actual earned income is the income from an actual job. It's the income from the actual work that you do. And currently most jobs are underpaid, and on the other hand, some people are massively overpaid. And like another way you could see this is like the U.S. president, who earns only like $400,000 a year. If you're gonna go assume that people like are rewarded fairly and that should be rewarded fairly, and they should be rewarded like for the contribution to society, and you say that okay, investment is really helpful for business, which it is, but if you're gonna go by that logic, then logically, well, the person who has the biggest impact, if your idea is that you should be rewarded for the impact that you have on the economy, then the U.S. president should be the person who's paid the most in the world, which means that it doesn't make sense that you have CEOs who earn 50 million when the U.S. president earns only 400,000. Logically, the U.S. president should be the person who earns the most in the world. So like literally, if you're okay with U.S. president earning only 400,000, then you should be okay with other people earning less. And I know you'll say it's like, okay, it's the taxpayer that's paying for it, but still, the point is that if you think that what people earn on the market is fair based on the fact that these people have lots of influence or something, then it also would be fair that the president should earn like hundreds of millions at the very least. And so the point is that is not being consistent. Again, the market is useful. It's useful because it provides wealth, because it generates a lot of wealth and income. But the point is that the market is useful from the perspective of the consumer because it provides it allows the producers to know what the consumer wants, and it allows also the consumers to amongst themselves have fair prices. But from the perspective of a person who makes money on the market is not fair, because we all end up like having, some people end up having monopolies on certain things, even if it's just their own skill. They end up having a monopoly on this skill of their own body. If you actually consider that like a CEO is chosen because that CEO is particularly skilled, or that like an athlete is chosen because that athlete has a particular skill, it's still unfair to pay them such amounts. So the point is that, and that the point is that then that unfairness limits the freedom of people who are at the losing end of that unfairness. And so if you actually want to maximize freedom, you should do so in a fair fashion, which implies, well, implementing a basic income and also a maximum income. So anyway, now the comments, I've sort of lagged in the comments, but I'm still going to reply. So Can't Remember says, so you're using the term libertarian in a European way rather than the wrong American way. And thumbs up. Okay, so yeah, great, thank you. Insatiable, why the fuck should one be given money if they don't want to work? Because it actually is, the point is that society shouldn't be organized around work. The point is that lots of people right now are being given money way more than their work. Like if Warren Buffett was actually just paid for his work, he would only like earn like $30,000 a year or something. Instead, he earns like many, many powers of tens more than that. Okay. So he's actually not being paid for his work. He's being paid way more for his work, which means that other people aren't being paid enough for their work. So the point is that in any case, the free market doesn't reward people for their work. So why deny the basic income at that point? It makes no sense. We're already not paying people for their work, so we're already paying people to not work. We're paying Warren Buffett billions to not work. So why not pay some random person just 10,000 to not work? It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. And now I'm seeing, for some reason I'm not getting notifications, but thank you people, L40421 and Can't Remember, for following me. Anyway, so yeah, that is why. And the whole point of civilization is to get more for less work. And the end goal of civilization is to get lots for no work. That is the whole purpose. So literally, we should be aiming for that kind of society where you're actually free to not work. And in any case, the point is that society doesn't even offer full employment to everyone, because the free market doesn't inherently offer full employment. So what are you going to do with the people who just aren't able to find jobs? You see what I mean? It doesn't make sense. And meanwhile, we're also okay with people not working as long as they're like married to a person who works. Why are you okay with that? That also doesn't make sense. If you want everyone to work, then really make everyone work. And so in any case, like in 100 years from now, we can have robots that are like smarter than humans. They can do all the work for us. It would literally be a drag to have humans keep working. Why on earth would you make humans keep working? Like just because you can fulfill your system that requires people to work to earn their living. It's nonsensical. Life should be enjoyed, and the purpose of life shouldn't be working. The purpose of work should simply be to make the economy function, to fulfill the needs of the consumer, which is all of us. And so don't you think it creates a lot more freedom to say, well, okay, you're free to not work if you don't want to, but obviously we need an economy to function. And so that economy requires us to work. That economy requires not all of us to work, but it requires some people to work. And so to motivate those people to work, we're going to provide them extra income if they work. Right now, what we're saying is that basically you have to work, and if you don't work, you're going to starve. It's much more liberating. I think if you're an actual libertarian, it's much more liberating to say, well, you've got basic income. It's not great, but it's decent enough. If you want more, then you can work. And of course, we need people to work. So yeah, so we're going to reward you for working more. What is my financial background? I don't have a financial. What do you mean by that? Like how rich is my family or something? We're like rich country, middle class. So insatiable. So if a person is not disabled in any way, just doesn't want to work, they'd have the money to lounge around and leech on society. Yeah, just like all the people who already don't work, just like all like the spouses of people who work but who themselves don't have a job. Why are you okay with that? It doesn't make sense. Yes, being a leech on society is fine. It's okay to be a leech on society. Society literally doesn't require. The point is that the purpose of society should be to let people live in leisure. See what I mean? They say if they don't work, they can't be taxed. Eventually, if enough people don't want to work, there will be no money to give out to the people not working. Yeah, the point is, I'm not saying everyone shouldn't work. The point is that people who work should earn more, but you shouldn't force people to work, because that's literally anti-freedom. Elaine says globalism, imperialism. Again, I disagree. I'm not into that kind of globalism. What I'm saying is an equitable, fair globalism, where everybody has the same standing, which is where everybody gets the same basic income, where everybody is allowed to apply for the same jobs, and where everybody gets to vote and their vote has the same weight. That is what I mean by globalism. Not the current kind of supposedly globalist thing is not that. Like when people complain about globalism, it's about like rich people profiting off of like free trade. That isn't what I mean by globalism. Unsatiable says they get $400K in free room and board for 48 years at the White House and taken care of for the rest of their life, but somehow that's not enough. I think you didn't get my argument. My point is that if you're going to say that what you earn on the free market is fair based on the fact that the people who earn a lot on the free market typically make a more impact on society, then the US president should earn even much more than that. And yet we're okay with making the US president only $400K a year, which means that logically it would make sense to make everyone else earn less than that, which is why I absolutely support a maximum income. Like, literally, people would still work with a maximum income. So W. Valenine 14, wouldn't you as a libertarian want someone leading that is not in it for the money? Of course, but the point is that you still need to reward people. You shouldn't be in it for the money, but you should still just reward them for their effort. That's only fair. And my point is that is the #1 most important job based on impact. So if you're going to be basing yourself on impact, which is often the argument, and I don't even think it should be based on impact, but even if you're basing yourself on impact, then you should basically limit the maximum salary to the salary of the US president. And so in practice, that is already a great argument for limiting all salaries to 400K. In practice, I actually want to limit it considerably more because I believe in complete fairness. And so I just want a 1-to-5 ratio between the basic income and the maximum income. So globally, what I want is a basic income of $10,000 and a maximum income after taxes of $50,000. And since taxes would be about 50%, that would be $100,000 before taxes. Elaine, they're being paid for their brand. Why would you want robots smarter than humans? Because literally, society would work much better. Like literally, you'd have more wealth, you'd have more of everything because they would do things better. They would create more things. They would give you everything that you need, and they'd be like they would be like your slaves. You see what I mean? They like literally would be your slaves, and they wouldn't. Presumably, I think robots wouldn't be conscious, so they wouldn't actually suffer in the way that actual slaves do. If you give people the option to not work, they'll take it, then what the fuck are you going to do when you don't have enough tax revenue coming in to give those not working? No, because not everyone will take it. There's actually been experiments. Most people actually keep on working, even if they've got a basic income. And the point is, when you work, you're going to make more money than when you don't work. Lots of people actually want to work and they want to make money. So obviously, lots of people are going to keep on working. You see, the point is to make people who work earn sufficiently more than the basic income so that they're still motivated to work. Your system literally doesn't work after enough people don't work. No, again, you're ignoring the fact that you just make the basic income low enough that most people still want to work. Elaine says, is it leeching off of society if no one will hire you? Also, society is leeching off of Texas. I don't understand that. For every few dollars Texas pays in taxes, they get $1 back. For every $1 California pays, it gets $3 back. Really, is that true? Is that true? If so, then yeah, that's unfair and that's kind of leeching. But again, it shouldn't be. I guess the way I would do it is you'd have just one global like taxation scheme, and there's just one tax rate. There's like no local tax. There's just one global tax, and then it gets redistributed partly to like the global government and then to the local governments, and then it will just be proportional to the size of the population within each local government. So then it would be just equitably distributed. Okay, and so I reached the bottom of the chat, and it looks like most people have left, if not all. So I think I'm going to stop it at that.